Stop believing that workplace romance is just a lack of professional self-control. The truth is much more biological, and frankly, much more dangerous. You might think you're smart enough to keep your professional life separate from your personal desires, but your brain has a very different agenda. What if I told you that the very policies designed to stop you from falling in love with a coworker are actually the fuel that ignites the fire? By the end of this video, you won't just understand why Jim and Pam are the rule rather than the exception. You'll understand the specific psychological triggers that turn a fluorescent-lit office into a breeding ground for forbidden attraction. We are going to dismantle the Romeo and Juliet effect, expose the lie of the work spouse, and reveal why your brain is chemically rewired when you share a deadline with someone attractive. But first, we have to look at the most boring yet powerful force in human psychology: proximity. You've probably heard the phrase, familiarity breeds contempt. Well, psychology tells us that is a complete lie. In the world of attraction, familiarity breeds obsession. It is called the propinquity effect, and it is the invisible algorithm running your love life. Think about your daily routine. You spend more waking hours with your colleagues than you do with your friends, your family, or your actual partner. You see them when they are stressed, when they are successful, and when they are vulnerable. The mere exposure effect creates a psychological shortcut in your brain. Evolutionarily, if you see someone every day and they haven't tried to kill you yet, your brain tags them as safe. And once someone is tagged as safe, the door to attraction is unlocked. But it goes deeper than just sitting next to someone. It's about shared struggle. There is a concept in psychology known as the misattribution of arousal. When you are in a high-stress situation, like a looming deadline, a terrifying presentation, or a crisis with a client, your body is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and your senses heighten. Here's the trick your mind plays on you. If you're experiencing those high-arousal physical symptoms while sitting next to a coworker, your brain often mislabels that anxiety as sexual attraction. You aren't just bonding over a spreadsheet, you are trauma bonding in a micro-environment. You start to associate that person with the intense rush of emotion, and suddenly, the guy from accounting isn't just a coworker, he's your partner in the trenches. Now, let's add the most volatile ingredient to this mix: the forbidden nature of it all. This is where corporate policy backfires spectacularly. It's called reactance theory. When human beings feel their freedom of choice is being threatened by an HR handbook, a boss, or a no dating policy, we instinctively push back to regain that control. When a relationship is forbidden, it demands secrecy. And secrecy is a potent aphrodisiac. Every glance across the conference room becomes a coded message. Every brush of a hand in the hallway becomes a high-stakes gamble. This secrecy creates what psychologists call a hyper-focus. Because you cannot express your feelings openly, you spend an inordinate amount of mental energy suppressing them. There is a famous experiment called the white bear problem. If I tell you not to think of a white bear, what happens? You think of nothing else. When you tell yourself, I cannot fall for this person, your brain puts them center stage. The secrecy creates an us against the world narrative. It isolates the two of you in a private bubble of reality that feels more intense and more significant than the mundane world outside. This is often why workplace affairs burn so hot and fast. The secrecy mimics the early stages of limerence, that obsessive, intrusive thinking phase of new love. You aren't just hiding a relationship, you are hiding a part of yourself, and sharing that secret vulnerability creates a level of intimacy that is accelerated far beyond a normal dating timeline. But wait until you hear what happens when the secrecy inevitably cracks. You might think the biggest risk is getting caught by HR, But the real danger is what happens inside your own head when the fantasy collides with the power dynamic. Let's talk about power. Why is the boss-subordinate relationship the most common cliché in the book? It isn't just about climbing the corporate ladder, it's about the psychology of competence. We are naturally attracted to competence and status. In an office environment, competence is the currency of survival. Watching someone command a room, solve a complex problem, or wield authority triggers an evolutionary cue for high value. However, this is where the halo effect blinds you. Because you see this person excelling in one specific area, their job, your brain assumes they are excellent in every area. You assume the brilliant negotiator is also a brilliant listener at home. You assume the visionary CEO is also an emotionally intelligent partner. You project a halo of perfection onto them based on their professional persona, ignoring the fact that work is a performance. You are falling in love with a mask. This becomes even more complicated when we look at the work spouse phenomenon. This term gets thrown around lightly, but psychologically it represents a significant emotional displacement. A work spouse provides the emotional intimacy, support, and validation that you might be lacking at home, but without the friction of domestic life. You don't have to argue about bills or chores with your work spouse. You only see the best version of them, the version that is dressed up, caffeinated, and professionally polite. This creates an unfair comparison for your actual partner or your real-life dating prospects. The workplace relationship exists in a vacuum of artificial best behavior. It is a sterilized environment where the messy parts of humanity are usually edited out. When you cross the line from emotional support to romantic entanglement, you are trying to drag that fantasy into the harsh light of reality. So what happens to your brain when you are actually in the thick of it? Cognitive dissonance becomes your daily state of being. This is the mental discomfort experienced by holding two conflicting beliefs. Belief 1. I am a professional who values my career. Belief 2. I am engaging in behavior that could destroy my career. To resolve this tension, your brain starts to rationalize. You tell yourself, it's not affecting my work, or we are being careful. But the neuroscience says otherwise. The dopamine hits you get from interacting with your office crush act like a reward system. You start seeking out interactions not for productivity, but for the chemical fix. Your productivity doesn't just dip, it shifts. You might work harder, but only on projects that involve them. You might stay late, not for the company, but for the proximity. Your professional judgment becomes compromised because you can no longer objectively critique their work or make decisions that might upset them. The lens of love blurs the sharp edges of professional critique. And then comes the inevitable paranoia. It's called the spotlight effect. You believe everyone is noticing your behavior as much as you are. Every time a door closes, you think people are talking about you. Every time someone stops talking when you walk in, you assume the secret is out. And usually, it is. Research shows that coworkers often detect a workplace romance long before the couple admits it to themselves. The nonverbal leakage is impossible to plug. The prolonged eye contact, the body orientation, the synchronized schedules. Humans are social animals designed to detect changes in group dynamics. You aren't hiding, you're just the only ones pretending. Now we have to discuss the darker side of this psychology, the breakup. If you break up with someone in the real world, you can block their number, unfollow their socials, and never see them again. In the workplace, you have to sit across from your heartbreak every single morning at 9 a.m. This creates a psychological torture known as extinction burst. In behavioral psychology, when you try to stop a behavior, like seeing an ex, but the stimulus, the X, is still present, the emotional reaction doesn't just fade, it spikes. You have to maintain professional neutrality while your internal world is collapsing. This is where the environment turns toxic. The shared history that once made you allies now makes you liabilities to each other. Information becomes a weapon. Professional disagreements are suddenly loaded with personal subtext.
The halo effect flips into the horns effect, where everything they do annoys you or seems incompetent. So, is it ever possible? Can the psychology of forbidden love ever translate into a healthy, long-term relationship? The statistics are surprisingly split. While many workplace affairs flame out due to the pressure, a significant percentage of long-term partners meet at work. Why? Because despite all the risks, the workplace acts as a rigorous vetting process. You get to see how a person handles stress, how they treat subordinates, how they handle failure, and how they celebrate success. You have more data points on a coworker than you do on someone you've been dating for 3 months from an app. If, and this is a massive if, the couple can survive the transition from forbidden secret to public reality, the foundation of shared values and shared lifestyle is often very strong. The key transition point is the removal of the forbidden element. Once the relationship is public, the chemical rush of secrecy evaporates. You are left with just two people. The thrill of the stolen glance is replaced by the reality of the shared commute. You have to ask yourself, was it the person you were addicted to? Or was it the risk? Was it love? Or was it just the only source of excitement in a job you hate? Often the workplace romance is a symptom of professional dissatisfaction, not a cure for loneliness. We project our desire for a new life onto a new person. If you find yourself on this precipice, psychology suggests a strategy of radical compartmentalization. You have to ask difficult questions. Are you bonding over shared values, or just a shared enemy in management? Is this intimacy, or is it just proximity? We spend 1/3 of our lives at work. It is unnatural to expect us to turn off our humanity the moment we clock in. We are not robots. We are biological machines seeking connection, validation, and dopamine. The office just happens to be the place where we are hunting for it. The forbidden nature of workplace love isn't just a policy issue. It's a psychological challenge that pits your neocortex, your rational decision-making brain, against your limbic system, your emotional primal drive. And history tells us that the limbic system usually wins the first round. The real challenge isn't falling in love. That's the easy part. The challenge is surviving the fallout when the biological imperative crashes into the corporate structure. So, as you look around your office tomorrow, remember that every glance and every coffee break is loaded with millions of years of evolutionary programming, fighting against a 20-page employee handbook. I want to leave you with a question that might change how you view your own office dynamics. We often blame the individuals for crossing the line, but looking at the psychology of proximity and stress bonding, do you think modern work culture is actually designed to force us together? Is the policy the problem, or is it simply human nature winning against the rules? Let me know your perspective in the comments below.